It's a town of 2,400 people. A place where nomadic isn't just a word in a court transcript. It's how people describe the childhood of the girl who would eventually bring Tumbler Ridge to its knees.
Jessie Van Rootselaar. To some, she was a ghost long before the events of February 10th. She dropped out of Tumbler Ridge Secondary 4 years ago, at just 14 years old. She vanished from the hallways, from the yearbooks, and largely from the public eye, until she returned in the most violent way imaginable.
We're diving deep into the investigative file of one of Canada's deadliest rampages. Sarah, let's look at the clock. The timeline police have verified is chillingly precise.
It starts at a private residence. Before anyone at the school heard a single shot, Jessie's 39-year-old mother, Jennifer Strang, and her 11-year-old stepbrother, Emmett, were already dead. A young family member managed to escape and reached a neighbor who made the first call. But by then, Jessie was already moving.
2 kilometers. That's the distance between the family home and the school. At 1:20 p.m., the first reports of an active shooter at Tumbler Ridge Secondary hit the scanners. The RCMP arrived within 2 minutes, but they were met with immediate gunfire.
Inside the school, the scene was a nightmare. Investigators eventually located the bodies of a 39-year-old teacher and 5 students, aged 12 and 13. Most were found in the library. One was found in a stairway. And in the middle of it all, 18-year-old Jessie Van Rootselaar was found dead from a self-inflicted wound.
But the investigation didn't stop at the crime scene. It went backward, into a history of red flags that the community is now forced to reconcile.
We've looked into the records, Mark. Jessie was born biologically male, but began transitioning to female 6 years ago. Deputy Commissioner Dwayne McDonald was clear. She identified as female socially and publicly. But there was a darker thread in her history, a series of mental health contacts with the police.
This is where it gets controversial. The RCMP confirmed they had been to the Van Rootselaar home multiple times over the last few years. In the spring of last year, Jessie was even apprehended under the Mental Health Act for assessment.
And then there's the question of the weapons. A long gun and a modified handgun were recovered. Here's the investigative twist. Police had previously seized firearms from that very household under the criminal code.
Right, but they didn't stay seized. The lawful owner, someone else in the household, petitioned to get them back. And according to former detectives following this case, the authorities actually returned them. Jessie herself had a gun license that had expired in 2024, but she had no weapons registered in her own name.
So how did she get them? That's the question haunting the Rockies tonight.
There's also the 2015 court ruling we uncovered. A BC Supreme Court judge described the family's life as almost nomadic, moving across provinces multiple times. Stability was a luxury Jessie Van Rootselaar seemingly never had.
Investigators say there's no evidence the victims at the school were specifically targeted, or that this was motivated by her gender identity. They're calling it indiscriminate.
1 teacher, 5 children, a mother and a brother. 8 lives gone before the shooter took her own. The why remains the missing piece of the puzzle, but the trail of mental health calls and returned firearms suggests the how was a tragedy waiting to happen.
The investigation continues, but for the people of Tumbler Ridge, the silence left behind is deafening.